Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Long Live Canada. My name is Daniel Tyree and I am your host. I am the founder and chairman of the Dominion Society. But tonight I'm just here to hang out with you guys and talk about the news of the week. I'm sorry I'm a bit late, guys. But I'm all put together this time. I remembered the tie. I got my pin. We're all ready for a couple of hours of chatting. So thank you for your patience. It takes some time to put this show together, guys. It's just me. I have to figure out all the links, what we're going to talk about, make the thumbnail. It all takes some time. Did you notice I also almost forgot to promote it on social media as well? Like I'm just killing it. I'm just killing it today. But how are you guys doing tonight? I see lots of people in the chat. You guys like to give me a hard time. I can appreciate that. I don't mind people making some comments about me. Some damn good jerk chicken. No jerk chicken for dinner tonight, guys. No jerk. We're on the cut. It's sweet potato and chicken breast right now. Gotta get summer ready, boys. You gotta start preparing now. We can't wait until the last minute if we're gonna look good. So we got another fun show ahead of us tonight, guys. We're going to talk a bit about the political spectrum, the political compass in Canada. We'll talk about the big news of the week, the floor crossers, the ever-growing Carney government, the new Carney Imperium, as I like to call it. But to start, I really want to talk a bit about Vimy Ridge. So before we get into any of that, I do appreciate everyone tuning in. Happy Easters to everyone. I hope everyone had a restful week, got to spend some time with family. I know I got to catch up on some sleep, which was much needed. So fix the shop. By the way, fix the shop page. We're working on it. We'll be dropping a new line of merch soon, guys. Yeah, Daniel is ascending. Yeah, I'm working on it. We all have to become the best versions of ourselves, guys, right? You are the nation. I am the nation. The people are the nation, and our health reflects the health of our society. So we gotta be the best versions of ourselves. We gotta look smacks. I'm not into bone smash and all this stuff, but working out and eating right are important. Okay, so before we dive into things, I do want to talk a bit about Vimy Ridge. So today, April 9th is what we call Vimy Ridge Day. It's the 109th anniversary of the battle at Vimy Ridge, which was fought between April 9th and April 12th back in 1917 during the First World War. You guys might have seen my video I posted earlier today, but I really think it is important that we recognize these important dates and remember our heritage, because Vimy Ridge was an important moment in Canadian history. It was a hugely galvanizing moment for the country. This is back in an age where we were still very much growing up out of our kind of colonial mindset. And these trips back to Europe, that may be a silly way of putting it, but the First and Second World Wars, when the Canadians returned to Europe, they really got that experience that they had been forged into something new and different and unique. We still had those European roots, but we had been defined over generations as settlers here in Canada. So Vimy Ridge was a critical point in the turning of World War I. It was a German-controlled post in France, and the French had not been able to retake it over years. The British had failed to take it, but the Canadians got involved, and we took back that point really quickly. Canada does have an incredible military history, and it does go back right to our roots that define us as Canadians. And this goes back to something I was talking a bit about a couple of weeks ago. It goes right back to those selection events, right? We had these kind of 2-3 main selection events. We had, the selection event, which was who was brave enough to get in or risky enough to get on a rickety ship, risk their lives crossing an open ocean to start settling a hostile wilderness. And there's that second selection event. If you were able to survive in Canada against the harsh climate, against warring bands of savages, of natives, there's that section selection event. And then third was the American Revolution. The people, the liberal-minded people, stayed down south to form America, and the more hierarchical, the more traditional, those are the Canadians. And what was founded, I mean, you have to remember, Ontario, upon its founding by the United Empire Loyalists, was pretty much just a military state. Ontario almost didn't exist until that wave of migration of settlers from America up to Canada. Before that, the Canadian territory was pretty much just all Francophones, Quebecers. But this new province of Ontario that would be founded by this United Empire Loyalists was pretty much just a military state, right? It was parceled out lands to soldiers with a commitment to protect that territory against the potential invaders of the Americans. So we had this big militaristic culture that really started to come into its own once we traveled back to Europe to start participating in the world wars. And we saw that right in World War I. Incredible Canadian soldiers. And Vimy Ridge was a special battle because it was the first time that all the Canadian divisions were parceled together and led by a Canadian, Arthur Currie, as the general. And we were able to take Vimy Ridge, this point that was seen as impossible to take. The Canadians were able to do so through diligent tactics and new age warfare, at least for the time, things that might be simple today. But Arthur Currie, he was not a trained military man. He came at it from a volunteer as a militiaman out on the West Coast in BC. He was not trained. He didn't come through the military academies. He didn't have a large family history as a military man. He was just a natural talent, a brilliant tactician and strategist. And I mean, if you're not familiar with the story, he led the Canadian troops very diligently. He drilled them, made sure everyone knew every square inch of the terrain. He had people running their different positions. Everyone had to practice their routes in advance. They were reviewing maps and aerial footage so that everyone could follow within this system. And as well, they perfected this tactic, which they called the creeping barrage, which was an advancing line of the word is escaping me, of cover fire, which the Canadian soldiers would advance behind, pushing the Germans back as the Canadians advanced. It was a brilliant tactic and was ultimately that turning point in this battle and allowed us to capture this point that was previously thought impossible. But this occasion, bringing all the Canadians together, juxtaposing them with their the French and the British, our colonial parents, it gave them a chance not only for Canadians across the country, East, West, English, French, all to coalesce together, to be juxtaposed against these other Europeans, to see that they were truly unique, and to conquer a big accomplishment as a group under Canadian leadership. So it's a really important date. I don't think it got enough fanfare today. I saw like the CN Towers being lit up pink for Pink Day to oppose homophobia and transphobia and whatever, blah, blah, blah. When we should really be talking about the great stories of Canada's past. Vimy Ridge is a very important moment in Canadian identity and forging the Canadian nation as unique from our colonial parents. So I think it's important as nationalists that we don't just talk about, ethnicity and identity and immigration, but I think we have to understand and remember our past, because you really have to understand where you came from to know where you're going. So these stories are very important. There's all these notions that get sort of tiresome. I'm sure you guys are bored of this too, of Canadians as peacekeepers, as nice, polite. But the truth about Canada is we're incredible warriors. And that was buried. It started with Trudeau, who really started to reinvent our military and simplify it and kind of kill off these distinct cultural identities within each of the different wings of our military and reinvent Canada as peacekeepers. But all of these notions of this liberal, multicultural, post-national identity all really just go back to Pierre Trudeau. it's not really an accurate depiction of what Canadian history and what Canadian identity is. So we have to push back on these notions. We have to remember who we are, and we have to be proud of our stories. And I think that starts with understanding the world wars from an authentically Canadian position. So we have to take some time today. Remember those great men that fought on behalf of Canada. Remember those who died. There was 10,000 casualties there at Vimy Ridge, 3,500 dead. We have to take some time to remember those brave men and everything they sacrificed so that Canada could remain free. And I think they'd be rather disappointed to see what our country has become. So it's not enough to just pay lip service and to remember them. We must actually actively fight to bring back the Canadian identity that's been lost over the last 40, 50 years. So I just want to take a few minutes to remember that important battle. It's important to understand who we are and what we're defending. I do want to say thank you for the super chats from Northwest Manny, $2. We love our military heroes, don't we, folks? We absolutely do. And $5 from Nutter. Remember who you are, chat. Remember who you are, who we are. A big praise to the brave Canadians that sacrificed their lives. But the big thing I want to talk about today is the Canadian political spectrum, what it means to be left and right in Canada. I was actually planning to speak on this since this weekend. I think it ties in nicely with the developments that we've seen this week with the floor crossing and the emergent kind of Carney majority government. But I was actually initially inspired to do this by one of my favorite haters, maybe my favorite hater, Wyatt Claypool. If you guys are terminally online and live on Twitter like me, you guys will know that me and Wyatt frequently butt heads. And Wyatt often likes to criticize me and the Dominion Society, saying that we're not even conservative, we're not even right wing. Wyatt's kind of positioned himself as this kind of policeman for what is conservative, what is right wing in Canada. And if you follow, if you've seen some of these arguments, some back and forths between Wyatt and I, you'll know that he says that I'm not even right wing. The Dominion Society, sometimes he'll say, well, we're woke, right? But oftentimes he'll say, well, not even right wing. Because to Wyatt, right wing, left wing, this is all determined by your position on like individualism versus statism or collectivism, authoritarianism, however you want to put it. The left is for big government, the right is for small government, individualists. And I've in the past defined myself as an identitarian. I believe that we need to have a rising kind of collectivist notion, a nationalist notion, to see ourselves not just as individuals, not just as abstract economic units, but to see ourselves as part of a greater nation, as a greater cause. And I think this is a real shortcoming of the Canadian right in general. Wyatt sees this and tries to police me out of the right at all, saying that since I define myself as an identitarian, a collectivist, I'm inherently on the left. And Wyatt and I have gone back and forth on this a few times. But this weekend, there was a broader argument outside of just me and the Dominion Society that kind of perpetuated this whole thing. So let's see what happened on Twitter. So you might have seen this from Anthony Koch. So Anthony, you guys might know, he's a conservative strategist. He worked on Pierre Poilievre's campaign. He's currently the communication director for Carolyn Elliott out in British Columbia. And he tweeted, "The Canadian conservative movement has been profoundly damaged by its outsized obsession with classical liberalism." And I think Anthony's absolutely right. I think that the Conservative Party in general has been captured by very American notions of liberalism. And that's a serious problem. It's out of sync with Canadian temperament. So I completely agree with Anthony here. But he you can see this got 70,000 views. It started a big discussion across X over the weekend. Anthony followed it up with a similar tweet. Quebec is the most conservative province in the country, properly understood. Too few people understand this because they think exclusively in economic terms. So again, I think he hits the nail on the head. It is kind of complicated. And we'll get into the nuance of left, right in a moment. I just want to kind of run you guys through the argument before we dive into the details. So Wyatt kind of responded to this. It's the new performative, edgy position to claim classical liberalism is somehow bad. Apparently, Barry Goldwater, Ronald Reagan, John Diefenbaker, Margaret Thatcher, and all are a bunch of classical liberal sellout hacks. I mean, yes, they are. I would only propose to change the name to classical conservative, since liberal labor parties have done a lot to ruin the word liberal and turn it into a big government modern liberal form. You can already see how confused things get because of the kind of big C conservative versus big L liberal versus small C conservative versus small L liberal. Things get very confused in Canada very fast. Wow. At JUH 7025 with the $100 super chat, Wyatt and Clyde do something or Schrodinger's racists. Southeast Asians are off limits, but natives are fair games. Why the hypocrisy? Yes, they don't have. Thank you for the huge super chat. But yes, they do. These guys do not have any sort of consistency in their views. So he thinks this is just kind of us trying to be edgy instead of rediscovering a more deep understanding of what the left-right divide is. I just have one more tweet here. I guess it's pretty much the same. He says that Quebec is amongst the most socialistic provinces on a provincial level. Anti-liberty, look at the lockdowns. But again, he doesn't kind of understand the cultural side of the political spectrum. So you can see why it's kind of positioned himself as this policeman. Anyone that's not for small government isn't a conservative. But as it's properly understood, the political spectrum isn't just a line, right? It's not just federal elections are just a referendum on the size of government. It's a decision, a collective decision on the direction of the country, how power is exercised within our society, the direction we want to go in, the projects we want to focus on, the kind of temperament we want in a leader on the national scale. And to just oversimplify this into a decision of small government or big government is such a failure to understand the broader philosophy behind the political divide. So in preparing for this, I started to think a bit about the political spectrum, and I wanted to bring up some visual aids for you guys so we could properly understand this. So I started just looking for a good graph. I'm sure you've seen them on the political spectrum. So first, I found this funny. Let's just look at this. So I just Googled political compass, and this is the first thing that comes up: politicalcompass.org. And you'd expect politicalcompass.org to be, somewhat neutral, right? And this is the graph that they have from the Canadian federal election, just made last year during the election. And look how ridiculous this is. This political, I want to say that this typical political compass, to me, it's just like libertarian propaganda. It's like it's an effort to insert libertarianism and to highlight its differences from the rest. But this one is so clearly made by some sort of like communist homosexual, I would assume. They have it as the left-right divide on the economic scale versus the authoritarian libertarian divide for the social scale. And like I think that's a pretty weird way to break things up. Like authoritarian versus libertarian is not really a dichotomy for social values. But this is clearly people that are just thinking in terms of like whether or not like abortion and homosexuality are legalized. They have the Conservative Party as far right authoritarians. I don't know what that's based off of. They have the Green Party here as, far right, somewhat authoritarian, and they have the NDP over here as left libertarian. This is not an an accurate outlook on the Canadian political divide at all. I thought it was just kind of bizarre in my quick research for this episode. So I thought we'd look at that. A very strange breakdown. Since I couldn't find a very good one, I decided to make my own. So here's what I put together. We're in Canva today. Can you guys see that good? I'll zoom in a bit more. I guess I can't. Try and make it as big as possible for you guys. Here we go. So I think this is a better breakdown of things if we're taking a very high level look at things. Another big super chat here, $5 from Gman8573. Conservatives are far right and heavy government, and the Liberals biggest NDP supporter reveal LMAO. Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. So here we have it. I think this is a better breakdown for like a basic normie friendly political spectrum. And I've broken it down. I have the economic scale on the up down here, and I've broken out as statist to libertarian, and then we have the social scale down here, and it's conservative to progressive. I think this is a much better way of breaking up the outlook in modern times. And I thought we'd take a moment, because this is a better way to capture the political divide here in Canada. So I have the leaders. I thought we'd take a moment and kind of start to place them here on the political divide. This isn't there. We're not Avi Lewis left of Pierre. No, he's just left of Pierre in the ordering, guys. We haven't placed them on the spectrum quite yet. So I wanted to start with Trudeau, because I think one of the biggest developments here that people are especially highlighted in this week's Floor Crossing News is the transformation of the Liberal Party from the Trudeau era to the Carney era. So I think we can pretty safely put Trudeau up here, right? He's he was for a big government, a statist approach to economics. He was hyper progressive. He spent his whole time as prime minister apologizing for the past, crying about colonialism, pushing for DEI, walking in pride parades, all this stuff. A very progressive notion socially, very statist. And Pierre would be kind of the response to Trudeau. Now, was Pierre really conservative? Like, no, not really. Like, he's definitely for a smaller government. Like, he's definitely here towards the libertarian quadrant. But like, he still believes in a role for the state, right? He wants to accomplish things, but more through tax credits and cutting regulations and stuff like this. But he's still rather progressive, right? Like, he was ardently pro-abortion during his time as leader. He doesn't want anyone to bring forward any motions on social conservative stuff. He doesn't really talk about social conservative issues, euthanasia, same-sex marriage, any of these stuff. He's still largely progressive, right? Avi Lewis, he's probably still up here with Justin Trudeau. Max Bernier, he's more libertarian. Maybe he's a bit more conservative because, he'll talk about there's two genders. He wants to reduce immigration. He's a bit more over here, let's say. And then there's Carney. And I think the Carney's development has been rather interesting, right? Because he's a little bit less progressive, right? He wants to put the woke away. He doesn't want to, he doesn't want to make his whole focus about social issues and DEI and all that stuff. He's willing to talk about Canada's founding peoples. He wants to he's anti-American. He wants to forge closer relationships with Europe. And but he's still rather statist compared to Pierre. But on social values, him and Pierre pretty much line up, right? They pretty much line up. It's more on the role of government that they differ. So even this is a rather simplified version of things. Like, you can break out the left-right spectrum into many different axes. And I decided on those because I think those are a very normal way for people to understand modern politics. But really, you could break this out into so many different spectrums, right? Pretty much any issue you could map on a right-left divide there. But there, like, to simplify things as Wyatt continues to do, to make it just a dichotomy between small government and large, it completely misses all sorts of issues, and it doesn't capture people like me. Like, to just throw nationalists, to say we're all left-wing because we view things more collectively, kind of fails to see the nuance of modern politics. So we could sort all sorts of different issues on this on this divide, right? Like and I think there are far more important aspects to this dichotomy that really capture people's personal opinions on a better level. Yeah, there is no right-wing party. That's exactly what I'm pretty much getting at. My audio is lagging. That's strange. I don't know what would cause that. So like there's all sorts of different divides here, and like to understand Canadian politics properly, like there's all sorts of kind of serious divides that break people up. I think that they're like in modern politics, it's incredibly important to understand the kind of nationalist versus globalist divide, right? That's kind of what Trump put on the map with his initial campaign there in 2016. Are we going to be governed through this like globalist, multilateral organizations like the UN and the WHO and all these things, or are we going to be more nationalist focused? Are we going to be pro-free trade, or are we going to put our own countries first, right? This new nationalist globalist divide is very important, and it gets completely lost if you reduce things to simply about size of government. Also, like in Canadian politics, there's issues like the English-French divide. Like there's a sliding scale of bilingualism. How do we incorporate bilingualism into our identity? There's the kind of federalist separatist divide, right? People fall all along this line, but like in between there's a kind of autonomous positions that have more autonomy for the provinces before maybe a full kind of separation. So we could have. It gets very difficult for people to conceptualize beyond the straight line or beyond the axes. Once you get into these like 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional models, it gets very difficult for people to comprehend. But really, politics is this, like people's political views, is this intersection of all these different issues to really understand people's viewpoints. And I completely agree with Anthony Koch there that a problem with conservative politics or Canadian politics in general is that it's been completely captured by this kind of by these very liberal notions, which are inherently very American, which is very much against Canadian identity, because you have to understand that while it's not a complete understanding of what Canadian identity is, very much of what we stand for is in juxtaposition to America, right? We fundamentally exist as a rejection of the American political ethos, or else we would just be American states, right? We are the people that rejected Americanism. So this drift of Canadian politics towards liberalism is really a betrayal of our founding, and that exists in people's political instincts in ways that people like Wyatt Claypool and a lot of conservative strategists don't seem to understand. I think if we're breaking it down to just a simple line, it shouldn't be about size of government. I think this is very out of touch with how most people, most Canadians, most average voters kind of think about things. Like, people don't really think about things in kind of macroeconomic terms like this. They don't think about how government should approach things. I think people's political differences exist on a much more fundamental level. I think a better divide, and just on a very like basic historical level, why it's kind of putting forward here is a misunderstanding of the history of the right-left divide. Not a lot of people know this, but this kind of terminology, right-left, goes back to the French Revolution. During the Revolution, their house of government was divided into two. You had the people on the right who were traditional monarchists, and then you had the people on the left who were Republicans pushing for change. So this is the origin of the right-left divide. And on this right-left divide, people who believed in tradition and hierarchy, monarchy are on the right, and the people who believe in democracy, republicanism, liberalism are on the left. So like this just displays Claypool's kind of complete misunderstanding of these political dynamics. If anything, he's the one that's on the left as a classical liberal, classical conservative, whatever he wants to call himself. Technically speaking, historically speaking, that's the left hand of the divide. People that believe in hierarchy or monarchy would be the right. Now, obviously, we live within a democracy at this point. It's not so much about the difference between republicanism and monarchism. But I think a much better way of understanding things is this. So we have the left, and they believe in change, equality, and universalism. They view things through very egalitarian, internationalist viewpoint, where everyone is an abstract economic unit. We have to make things fair. We can't have any discrimination, and so on and so forth. Whereas the right is what stands for continuity, hierarchy, and particularism. So particularism would be the juxtaposition of universalism. So instead of viewing everyone as abstract, liberal economic units, everyone's the same, no matter where they come from, and so on, we view things as different. Be that, in nationalist terms, Canadians versus foreigners, between genders, men and women. We see the differences in society. And I think this much more accurately captures how people think about things on like a gut level, on an instinctual level. Of course, your average person doesn't really think about these terms: universalism, particularism, hierarchy, egalitarianism. Most people don't even understand these terms. But this is the kind of fundamental difference in people's kind of voting behaviors, whether they want change and progress or whether they want to slow things down and make sure we maintain continuity. So really, I think this is a much better way of looking at things. And then you quickly see that everyone's very much on the left in politics, right? Like, this guy is all the way over here. He wants DEI. He wants pure liberalism. This guy's also right over here. I don't even know why I'm including him, but he just got elected, so I thought I'd throw him in here. Max is probably closer to the right. He's willing to say there are differences between men and women. He wants to see restriction on immigration and so on. And then these guys are pretty much hanging out around the same place. But everyone's very much on the left-hand side of things. We haven't really seen real political representation on the right in generations in Canada. And that's what I think is lacking. And it results in this kind of politics where people are quibbling over these minor differences, over size of government, over the role of government, instead of offering a significant philosophical alternative to the status quo. And as such, people that have these more like right-leaning proclivities that want hierarchy and order are just completely unserved in the Canadian kind of political marketplace. Maybe they'll latch on to the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre just because like they're the other option, but they're not really truly motivated because that's not what they represent. And I think I think issues like DEI and the gender ideology stuff make this very clear. For example, while conservatives, big C conservatives, might offer criticisms on these issues, they will only ever approach them from a very liberal perspective. For example, you'll have on the gender ideology stuff, the right-wing position, the particularist position is that men and women are different. They have different skills. They're complementary. They have different gender roles. That would be a more traditionalist right-wing perspective, but that's not what the CPC offer, right? The left will push this notion that men and women are the same and they can switch and whatnot. And conservatives will criticize it by being like, it's not fair to women. It's not fair in women's sports. It compromises women's safety in places like bathrooms. That's the only areas where conservatives will be comfortable pushing back on this notion. But they don't go and take the right-wing stance, which would be, no, men and women are different. They're both good. They're both important for society, but they are different. They're not comfortable with that. They can only criticize it from a liberal standpoint. And we see the same thing when it comes to DEI. You see guys like Jamil Jivani in the Conservative Party, and they say, the libs are the real racists, right? DEI is racist. We should make everyone equal. And the liberals, people will call them like authoritarian or whatever for these DEI measures, but they're also approaching it from a very liberal perspective. They see discrimination or racial or difference in racialized outcomes or stuff like this as a systemic problem. And in order to maintain fairness, in order to maintain an egalitarian kind of space, they say we need DEI. We need, hiring benefits to certain sexualities or races or whatnot. So again, we see the liberals and the conservatives having these disagreements, but purely within this liberal framework. And that just doesn't appeal to people because people's divides actually fall along this kind of left-right divide, this egalitarian versus hierarchy. And, the actual hierarchical position on this would be, no, we need to put our own people first, right? The Canadians are different from the foreigners, and we need to make sure Canadians are put in positions of power, that they have the economic opportunities. Like, this is the nationalist perspective, the traditionalist, the hierarchical perspective, but it's just not offered within the kind of political marketplace. So this is what you need to understand. Like these guys like Wyatt, there's this whole kind of, increasingly in the mainstream conservative space, there's this identity crisis in how they kind of play out these directions. And the problem is fundamentally that the entire political spectrum has been captured by this kind of liberal framework, and it's fundamentally anti-Canadian. Canadians, like on a basic level, we're a very collectivist, kind of communitarian people. And it comes back right to the roots that we were talking about at the beginning with Vimy Ridge. The people that came here, they needed a level of collectivism, a level of state intervention is simply necessary in Canada, both economically and socially. The people that came here, like, you can't survive in Canada as an early settler unless there is collective action, right? If you just go out on your own, you're just going to die. So like there is a kind of evolutionary, generational kind of perspective that in order to survive and thrive on this landmass, we need to be able to work together. We need to take on our own particular. The dog's shaking off a bit. You guys probably heard that. Where was I? There is a need for a natural kind of hierarchy. There is a need for a communal kind of collective perspective in order for our society to thrive. But then more on the economic side of things, in order for Canadian business to exist and not be completely absorbed by, American corporate interests, in order to have projects like a railway connecting the Canada from coast to coast, you need a strong state to protect those interests, or else everything would go north-south, right? And that's very much how it was before the Canadian state started to intervene. Like the trade between whether it be like the Maritimes was much more linked with Maine in the southern, the northern American provinces out there. There needs to be a level of state intervention in order to create this kind of in Canada economy. So to just reduce things to liberalism, kind of, can we see the pup? Another super chat there from Nutter. Can we see the pup? I don't know. Do you want to come over here? Maybe he'll come over here later. He kind of wants we'll see if he'll make an appearance a bit later. So it just doesn't. It displays a complete misunderstanding of Canadian history, Canadian heritage, and the active proclivity of voters. And I think this is why Pierre is going to continue to fail, because he offers a view on and a vision for Canadian society that's just very out of sync with what Canadians actually want, based off of our history and our heritage, and the generations of living here in Canada in a hostile wilderness. And I think this leads pretty well into the news of the week, which is the floor crossers and what this means for the Canadian political spectrum in general. So let's go. Where do we start, man? It's such a crazy week. So let's just do a rewind of the last kind of week or so in Canadian politics, and lead straight into the floor crossers, and then we'll circle back to the Canadian political spectrum and see how it all kind of links up. So Pierre had a couple of good weeks there, right? He went on Joe Rogan. He went on that Diary of the CEO. They got some good media out of it. He showed a different side of himself and so on. But right out from there, it started to kind of go downhill. This article is from The Star on April 3rd, so about a week ago. Conservative MPs bristle as Pierre Poilievre asks them to justify their roles. After a hot week for Pierre Poilievre, he immediately starts sending letters to his shadow cabinet, demanding they say what they've done lately and justify why they deserve to keep their roles, and so on. Here it says, Pierre has 2 good weeks in a year and he's back to default mode. Prove yourself every 5 minutes, said the MP. If you're going to do a shuffle, just do one. Don't play this stupid game. He sent an email to conservative shadow ministers asking them to give examples of their best social media posts, media interviews, and examples of how they have public reach in their portfolios. It also asked if they were still interested to remain in their public roles. So right off the start, Pierre has a couple good weeks and he starts putting pressure on his own caucus, demanding results. This is just showing the kind of instability within the Conservative Party. A couple of days later, we get this news report from CTV. Joël Denis Bellevance from La Presse says he's told up to 10 MPs are still in discussions with the Liberal delegates from Mark Carney's office. Many of these are presumably Conservatives, not all of them. We did see one floor crosser from the NDP, if we recall. So Pierre's pissing off his team, we see, and then up to 10 more people are looking to cross the floor. And then here we have an article just from yesterday, another one from The Star. Up to 40 Conservative MPs fear that Pierre Poilievre will cost them their seat, says insiders. So there's up to 40 Conservative MPs that are upset with Pierre Poilievre's performance. And if we just look at the polls, it's not surprising why. This is just since about February, which is when the kind of tension started to go up between Canada and America again, we see a massive divergence within the Liberal and Conservative poll numbers. So Pierre has been on the decline, even despite his little podcast tour. They're on this slow decline as the Liberals continue to ascend. And this makes it very difficult for Conservative MPs. All of a sudden, floor crossing becomes a lot more interesting because it might be an avenue for them to retain their seat, especially in this era where we've seen the Carney government really shift away from how things were under Justin Trudeau. So this is all leading up to the floor crossing. The big story there, Marilyn Gladu, the Conservative MP for Sarnia-Lambton, crosses the floor. What is it? Yesterday, 2 days ago, to join the Conservative, the Liberal caucus, making Carney's majority all but inevitable. There's 3 by-elections that'll take place on Monday, on the 13th. all in previously liberal held ridings. It's now looking like Carney will have a majority government cobbled together through these floor crossings. Now, this has become a very controversial happenstance over the last. It's really ignited discussions here across the political spectrum. I posted a tweet in response to this, and I got a lot of flack for it. Here was my response. I said, there's nothing significant that separates the Carney Liberals from the Poilievre Conservatives, so why not join the government instead of doing nothing in opposition? If the Conservatives are not able to offer a distinct national vision, they are on pace for complete collapse. And I very much believe that. Again, there's no significant differences between the Carney Liberals and the Pierre Poilievre Conservatives. Like it really comes down, like they have like Carney's all over, like the affordability issue, the American trade issue. He's willing to build national infrastructure projects, as we talked about last week with the trains. On all these things, they're like, from a macro level, they're very similar. It's very clear between those. I watched both of his big podcast appearances on Joe Rogan and Diary of a CEO, and it's very clear that the substance behind Poilievre is very much this like small government liberal kind of ethos. He wants to accomplish all the same things. He wants to make sure pipelines are built. He wants to have national projects and stuff like this. He just believes that the government shouldn't play a leading role in this. It should cut regulations, cut taxes, but broadly to achieve the same vision that Carney's already offering. And what Carney is offering is more in line with these Canadian kind of proclivities, that a strong state is necessary to accomplish these things. So really, if we look at it if we go back to our little chart here, what we've seen is Carney's kind of position within the landscape is kind of just growing, right? We've seen him take in, like even going across the kind of political divide, because he's willing to accept Marilyn Gladu, who's like a pretty far right conservative MP, right? She stood with the Freedom Convoy. She voted against the conversion therapy bill, the one that would criminalize parents for telling their kids they weren't trans or whatever. But he also took in NDP MP for Nunavut, Iqaluit. So like he is expanding the Liberals' tent to include NDPers, but also to include Conservatives. So we just see him expanding the Liberals' position within this kind of centrist positioning. And I think it really it's pushing Pierre Poilievre right out of the conversation. So I've seen kind of two main reactions, and I think both of them kind of miss the point. So I saw this in reaction to my tweet. I saw this in reaction to the general conversation. I want to give my perspective on things. So first, we've seen the kind of JJ McCullough perspective, that this is an abuse of our system. If MPs aren't loyal to their party, you want to come over here? You want to show off? If MPs aren't loyal to their party, then what's the point of the system in general? It's a betrayal. But as usual, JJ displays a poor understanding of Canada's history, because really the party system itself is a flaw in the system. The original parliamentary system, as it was started by the fathers of Confederation, did not rely on these like super strong party structures, right? Initially, parties were a much more kind of informal arrangement. You didn't have these multi-million-dollar organizations that were in charge of vetting and selecting candidates and stuff, right? People rose at the local level to represent their communities. They had different viewpoints, and they kind of formed these kind of informal parties with like-minded people. Yes, people would cross the floor and stuff like this, right? These were much less defined party structures. It's really this whole like party discipline thing, these massive permanent campaign professional political parties. Like this is the bigger aberration from a system point of view than the floor crossers. Really the bigger issue is our kind of political system and this strong party discipline. Floor crossers it has always been a part of the system. So I think that misses the point. But the bigger problem, I would say, is this line of attack that I've seen from most conservatives, and it goes along the lines of, this is Gladue is completely abandoning her principles. What does she even stand for? How can she be a part of the Liberals, right? Like it's all these people freaking out about consistency and principles and stuff like this. But I think how these floor crossings are going to be perceived by average Canadians is that Carney is a pragmatist. He's willing to put differences aside and create a big tent. Really, I think that now we'll see more NDPers see themselves as comfortable with the CPC, more with the Liberals. More conservatives see themselves that there's a place for them within the Liberal Party. And people are asking, like, why doesn't he just call an election? Like the polls are up for him. Why does he have to rely on these backroom deals? But I think you have to take a longer kind of outlook on these things, because right now, like the way that Carney's operating, he's kind of pushing the NDP and the CPC out of the conversation. If these rumors about 40 discontented conservative MPs worried about keeping their seats, 10 more floor crossers, we're quickly going to have a large Carney majority government, and it's kind of pushing the Conservatives completely out of the conversation. So through these backroom machinations, I think he's making the other parties kind of irrelevant, and we could be on course for, when an election is called, an even bigger Carney majority through these political machinations. I think Carney has proven to be, and I'm not a Carney supporter, I'm not a conservative supporter, I'm trying to view things objectively as a Canadian nationalist whose priority is remigration. Carney's kind of eaten everyone's lunch. I see the thing with Pierre Poilievre is he was very much a response to Trudeau, right? And you can see this in how he talks about how he would talk about Trudeau versus how he now talks about Carney. He was that kind of polar opposite to Trudeau. And now that Trudeau is out of the picture, it's not clear what the point of Poilievre and his vision are in comparison to Mark Carney and the Liberal Party, right? Like Mark Carney, and like you can talk about details and policy and all these things, but the reality is politics is a matter of perception. Perception is reality. And in the perception here of Mark Carney is that he is more fiscally responsible. He is making cuts to the budget across the board. He is seen as a more fiscally responsible, an investor, a banker. And that's what kind of Pierre's whole position was. And you can see this captured in his messaging. Like when Pierre would talk about Justin Trudeau, it was, that guy is ruining the country. He's ruined Christmas. You can see old videos, old press conferences from him. He's going to destroy the country. Like he was attacking Trudeau, his very legitimacy as a leader. Whereas now he talks about Carney. If you followed through his international tour, it's like, oh, I'm sending my text updates to Mark Carney. Oh, I can't insult Mark Carney on foreign soil. Like he needs to be much more careful with how he attacks Carney. And that's because Carney has a big appeal within the conservative movement, right? But if the Conservatives is the main alternative option to the Liberals, isn't able to brazenly attack the leadership of the Liberals, then he's just not the guy for the job, right? So I think that completely captures this new kind of transforming political dynamic. I got a lot of flack for that tweet there. People started framing me as a liberal or someone, but so many people seem lost in the past. They're still opposing the kind of Trudeau era Liberal Party. When people were listing to me the differences in the response to those tweets, it was all about kind of how the Trudeau Liberals were different than the Pierre Conservatives. But the Carney Liberals are a different beast, and the Conservatives, if the Conservatives aren't there to meet the moment, if they're not there to go back to that other political divide that we offered, if they're not able to offer an authentic right-wing criticism of the government, then they're not going to be able to pick up support, and they're not going to be able to differentiate themselves from the Liberals, and they become very quickly irrelevant. So I've seen people talking about how I'm not the only one saying that the Conservative Party is on pace for collapse. Sorry, I need to let my dog out. He needs to get out of the room. He needs to go pee, guys. He'll be back later. 1 second. Where was I? Unless Pierre can find avenues to actually attack Carney's credibility beyond we need to cut taxes, but beyond we need a smaller government, some angles that really resonate with the average Canadian, they're not going to be able to grow. They're not going to be able to. They're going to continue to lose support, because even people like Marilyn Gladu, you have to view things from her perspective. She could be the kind of further right Conservative MP and be completely ignored within her own party, or she could be a further right Liberal MP and at least be part of government, but still not be able to advance any of her social issues. Like, what's the difference really from her perspective? And if Marilyn Gladu can make that change, I think you'll see a lot more Liberals making that. Conservatives making that swap to Liberal. It's so hard to keep them in check nowadays. And people are talking about how this is unprecedented, but this was always so inevitable from election day, right? It was always a slim minority government, 1 or 2 seats. It was there's just so much leverage that they can have in these situations. Come form the government with us. Come form the government. Don't be a backbencher. Come join the government. That's a very appealing. Maintain your seat. You can join us. Those are very appealing offers that the Conservatives just can't put forward. And if they're not going to offer any sort of different substantive vision on these crucial issues, then there's not much of a point to their party in general. So, as I keep saying, the Conservatives are on pace for collapse. And with that kind of chaotic environment, it poses a real opportunity for dissident voices, for nationalist voices, to quickly rise in that kind of chaos of the collapse of the Conservative Party. I wouldn't be surprised to see Pierre ousted after the next election. I expect that the Carney Liberals will win even bigger. And if the Conservative Party collapses, much like we saw in the 90s, then there is going to be opportunity for nationalists to hijack a party, to form our own party, and offer a really coherent alternative to the kind of big capital L liberal status quo. Because on so many issues, you see Carney just kind of outflanking Pierre over and over and over again. On immigration, he's gone further right than the Conservatives. On things like national identity, we have Pierre out there parroting this nation of immigrants type stuff, whereas Carney's saying that there are 3 founding peoples. It's a lot of rhetoric, but politics is about vibes. It's about perception, and Carney has kind of outflanked the Conservatives again and again, while maintaining support on the more left progressive side of things. So really, the Conservatives need to change how they're doing things, or they're just not going to be very relevant in the long term. We saw earlier this year like Pierre Poilievre's job could be relatively secure. We saw earlier this year he had his leadership review, and he got 87% from the delegates within his party. There is still another way he could be ousted, and that's through the Reform Act. That would require 20% of MPs to sign a letter demanding a leadership review, and then a majority of them would have to vote to oust him. I mean, given the instability and Pierre's kind of poor caucus management, kind of breathing down people's necks, demanding authority, you have to be winning in order to put pressure on people in politics, or else they're just going to go and join the other team, or they're going to step down and get out of the way. That's just the reality of things. And if Pierre can't manage his caucus, he might have to face some sort of revolt. But the lack of alternatives, I think, is going to make that kind of unappealing for most conservative MPs. There's no obvious kind of heir apparent. There's no obvious heir apparent to rally around. So pushing him out, like that's how Aaron O'Toole got pushed out, right? The Reform Act had him pushed out. People knew that Pierre was in the rings. There was someone to rally around quickly, but there is not that kind of alternative leader anymore. Who's going to take over the Conservative Party? Jamil Devani? Melissa Lantsman, Michelle Rempel. None of these are any better than Pierre Poilievre, really, in any way. So, but we need to. This is precisely why we kind of need to be thinking in metapolitical terms. We can't just be looking to hijack political parties or infiltrate political parties or whatnot. We need to take a step back. The Conservative Party is not the only vehicle for our views. In fact, we've seen Mark Carney is very pragmatic. We've seen him completely kind of transform his political views in order to capitalize and maintain power. So, I mean, during the Trudeau era, he started to like soft launch his political career, right, with his book there, Values. And if you read Values, it is a very left-leaning tome about government involvement, about all these kind of social values and so on. But it's completely not in line with, and I mean, like even during the Trudeau era, you had him appearing as a delegate, head of committee, counter-signaling things like pipelines. Now you have him in government signing an MOU with Danielle Smith in order to get a pipeline built, a memorandum of understanding in order to accomplish a pipeline project. You've seen him completely contort his views and pitch the party to the center in order to capitalize on a shifting Overton window. And you can give Pierre Poilievre some credit for that. Like he did play an important role in shifting the Overton window back towards the right. You can also give Justin Trudeau some credit for that, for kind of destroying the kind of leftist brand. And of course, there is also kind of global factors at play, this kind of shift back towards a more nationalist ethos that has shifted the Overton window in such a way. But Mark Carney has proven to be very malleable to that. He's shifted the Liberals in a much more immigration restrictionist position, right? We've gone from over 1 million a year coming into now a net negative immigration rate last year, massive cutdowns in foreign students, new bills to revoke status from asylum claimants and so on. He's completely outflanked them on the immigration issue. So this is why that's why we founded the Dominion Society, right? We founded this nonpartisan entity in order to advance nationalism and remigration metapolitically. We're open to any political party adhering to our views. We need to be thinking above politics. Like people don't understand what I mean when I say metapolitics, I think. And it's this concept that real change happens above politics, right? We need to shift the Overton window. We need to normalize things in the general political culture. And then politicians will adjust to what is popular, exactly like we've seen Mark Carney do. He's adjusted his views on pipelines. He's adjusted his views on the size of government. He's adjusted his views on immigration in order to capitalize on what is most popular. And we exist to continue pushing that notion. And it's not just about social media posts and banner drops and stuff. Like, for nationalism to succeed, for remigration to catch on, it needs to be part of the mainstream zeitgeist. We need to make nationalism like fun and cool and interesting. We need everyone to understand what remigration is if we're going to if any politician is ever going to say the word remigration or advance a kind of remigrationist position, it's going to be because it's popular. And we achieve that, I think, the way I built the Dominion Society, we can have, like, metapolitics is this whole space, right? It captures the general culture, academia, writing articles, covering the news from a different perspective, demonstrations, protests, mass movements. Like, this is the space, academia. This is the space of metapolitics. And the Canadian right, the authentic right, this like hierarchical particularist perspective, not smaller government, not more libertarian, not that like fake right type stuff. The real right is completely underdeveloped after kind of generations of being starved. So we need to work and build that back up. And ultimately, I see, it just as likely for someone like Mark Carney to adopt our views as it would be for someone like Pierre Poilievre or the Conservatives, if not more likely, because it's looking like Mark Carney's going to be in power for some time. We have to kind of work within the system that we're offered. We need to think above politics, right? It's not just about getting our guys in MP offices. It's not just about hijacking the Conservative Party. It's about making nationalism popular, about making remigration the mainstream. Once everyone realizes that's the only way forward, people like Mark Carney, pragmatists like Mark Carney, will come along in order to maintain power. He'll shift for what's popular, and we just need to continue to kind of push that Overton window to the right. And we can't do everything at the Dominion Society, especially the media side. Like, we need to have a kind of third-party media in order to cover us and to give us different platforms and stuff. But the way we've built the Dominion Society will cover kind of multiple aspects of this kind of meta-political approach. Like, we are building the kind of academic side of things. I want to start working on a new kind of publication to publish longer form essays. We are generating all sorts of social media content in order to normalize these things. We're building grassroots organizations to meet up in person, to spread our message through posters and flyers, to engage in demonstrations and protests and show that there's public support for these things. We want to start working on more viral mainstream media content, as well as high level kind of academic type writings, in order to move the ball forward from a bunch of different perspectives to mainstream ideas, normalize our ideas. The politics needs to be secondary. They will follow us. We need to lead. We can't be so focused on the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party is kind of a failing entity at this point. We have to be thinking in longer timelines, not just next week. We need to get this whole kind of political divide secondary to the meta politics. So on that note, I will start taking a few questions here from the audience. I'll have a little rant there at the end, but please start throwing your questions in the chat. I'll answer for a few minutes here. And again, a big thank you to JUH. Just $70.25, $100. That's the biggest super chat we've ever got. So a big thank you for the support. But if you want to see the Dominion Society grow, like, please head over to our website, dominionsociety.ca. Sign up, become a member. That's how you get involved. You get a nice lapel pin. You get a nice membership card, and most importantly, you get plugged in with our local team, and you get to start making a difference. Really, the Dominion Society, it needs to be this nexus point of the nationalist movement. We need to form a kind of counter elite. I'll get into that a bit more in my ending rant there. But right now, let's take some questions. we got another super chat here from Not Sorry Canadian. On my way to Brampton to crack the whip at the Dom's Hawk merch sweatshop. Yeah. It's coming. We're trying to get it out. We have a bunch of new merch in the works. We have a new design that we're rolling out, and we'll be doing some new like summer merch and stuff, shirts and shorts and hats and all that sort of stuff. Would you do some campus debates / table of conversations around Toronto? I would be very interested in doing stuff like that, Dave. I think we're going to do a bigger push for some campus organizations over the summer, and try and do some of that stuff in the fall. The university campuses are kind of shut down right now for finals and stuff like that. But we'll use the summer to kind of prepare more student organizations and see what we can do once the term resumes in the fall. But I do like that sort of content. I think that would be a great way of advancing the conversation. That's a great suggestion. Can you give your thoughts on the Alberta separatist referendum? Yeah, for sure. Myself personally, I'm definitely a federalist. Like, I think we owe it to the fathers of Confederation there to keep this kind of McDonald's grand vision of a coast-to-coast Canada together. That being said, I do think separation is a kind of important tool to make sure that kind of regionalist provincial autonomy is respected. So I do think that Albertans are right to be aggrieved. There's been a lot of, especially under the Trudeau government, a reticence to build pipelines and extract our resources, and the Alberta economy and the Canadian economy has suffered as a result. So I definitely understand where they're coming from. That being said, I don't think that the referendum will succeed in large part due to the ethnic vote. In the Quebec referendums, we saw that ethnic foreigners, immigrants, voted for referendum, whereas a majority of actual Quebecers did vote for separation. So I think Alberta will face the same kind of problems in that the ethnic vote will actual heritage Albertans will vote for separation, whereas the ethnic communities will vote to stay in Canada, and will kind of ruin the any chance of actual separation. So I do think if you are a separatist, if you are in Quebec, if you are in Alberta, the priority needs to be remigration. Even if in the long term you think separation's best, you and I can disagree on that. But we have to agree that right now the priority is remigration, even if that's what's best for Canada, and it's what's best for separatist movements even. Western Loyalist says, join up and volunteer, people. Yes, get involved. Go to the website, sign up as a member, and get involved as a volunteer in your community. You get to meet all sorts of great like-minded nationalists that live near you. When is the Senate or Governor General going to place a mandatory election when an MP crosses over? I don't really think that's necessary. If anything, I think we need to weaken the powers of political parties within our system and make it so that MPs are more connected to their actual communities and representative of their own constituents rather than just representatives of parties. Yes, White Boy Summer merch coming in hot. We'll have a new White Boy Summer line. Gamma JK says, is this Dominion Society compatible with libertarianism in any way, either political or social libertarianism? So again, at the Dominion Society, we try and keep things very simple. We try and stay focused on a nationalist perspective on politics and a push for remigration. We don't want to take stances on all sorts of issues, economic issues, climate change, all these sort of things. If you agree with remigration, regardless if you want a big government, a small government, or so on, if you believe remigration is necessary, you need to get involved in the Dominion Society. So, I mean, this does go against, like, a nationalist perspective on things does kind of go against a kind of libertarian perspective, because the libertarian perspective is very atomized, very individualist, whereas we nationalists, we're looking at the health of the nation. So I know some libertarians kind of don't agree with that, and I know some libertarians do agree with that. It's a bit of a divide within the conversation, but that's kind of my take on that. What do you think of the show cred? Social credit is complicated. I don't know if you mean the parties or the actual like economic theory. I think the economic theory is, I haven't done a dig on that recently. I got kind of obsessed with that for a little while. But I mean, to go with a completely different economic model in this kind of globalized world, I think is kind of unrealistic. We kind of have to stay within the framework of international commerce to some degree. Any updates on membership growth and where? Yeah, we're up to about we cracked 2,500 members recently. I won't get into the regional breakdown, but we have a strong base of support in Ontario, out west, and in Nova Scotia. Ratio to men to women in DomSoc. I don't take gender in our intake form, but it's definitely quite male dominated right now. Canadians equally own the resources of the whole country. Why should Alberta get to steal all of our oil? So that's actually not completely true. Our constitution gives natural resources to the provinces, and I actually think that's a flaw in our constitution personally. Like, I think if we were to have a nationalist government, like I would like to see our government kind of take inspiration from things like the Norway model with the sovereign wealth fund, and I think we could reinvest natural resource profits into a sovereign wealth fund, and ultimately in the long term use that to like completely phase out things like income taxes. But right now that would be unconstitutional because it's all owned by the provinces. So I think that's a bit of a flaw, but this comment isn't actually true. Technically all the provinces do have jurisdiction over their natural resource wealth. Jozu Kenji Mura 6598 says this might be a controversial question, but is it safe to say heritage Canadians are already the minority, considering some European Canadians are only first or second generations themselves? This is complicated. It's definitely a slim minority because, I mean, heritage Canadians we would include later settlers who helped settle like Western Canada in the early 1900s. So there is a significant base, but we're definitely trending quickly towards minority status. And if we're going to limit things to like ethnic Canadians, the unique kind of ethnic groups that formed within the St. Lawrence Valley, those have definitely already become a minority. But I think we should include the broader groups of European settlers that did assimilate into that Anglo-Franco-Canadian identity, and that we're still a minority, but still a majority, but a slim one. We're definitely on tight timelines here to turn our country around. We're meeting monthly in Alberta. Sign up and get on board. Yeah, we're very organized out in Alberta. Guys in that province are usually getting a phone call, getting onboarded within weeks or days of signing up. And I think I know who Western Loyalist is, and he's doing great work out there. So yeah, if you're in Alberta, definitely get involved. They're ahead of the curve. How do you reconcile a classical conservative view of government necessity with the decade-long trend of overspending and deficits? I don't think we've had really very classical conservative governments. Obviously, we've had pretty big government, big spending across these the last few generations. I don't think that kind of classical conservatism, classical liberalism is really consistent with Canadian proclivities. You talked about doing something this summer. Have you thought about inviting all these groups to come attend and speak, or will this be focused on the Dominion Society? I think bringing popular front ideas is as important. This will be pretty focused on the Dominion Society. I am looking to bring in some international speakers that are in line with the kind of nationalist movement, the remigration movement, and we really want to keep things focused on remigration and nationalism. But we're still having some problems. We still need to nail down a venue. Would you also push for recent European or American remigration as well as other groups we can agree on? I mean, you can find our full remigration plan on our website. We're very focused on, like, we're primarily focused on things like illegals and criminals, people that are manipulating the system through things like asylum claims and birthright citizenship, in groups like this, people that are actively incompatible with our society and working against our national security and social cohesion, groups like this. We don't say that everyone who's not a heritage Canadian needs to go. Like, obviously, there are successful immigration stories that people that have assimilated well into, or integrated well into our society. These guys are not the priority. We need to get out the more dysfunctional aspects as a priority. So as a federalist, you support the foreigners who block separation? No, I want to remigrate the foreigners. I just think remigration is the priority over separation. Another super chat there from Not Sorry Canadian. I really appreciate it. If you do want to give financial support, I do encourage you to go to our website and donate there. YouTube takes a huge chunk over every super chat, so if you want to give financial support, I do encourage you to head over to our website and donate through our donation page. On that line of thinking, why does Quebec get to steal so much hydroelectricity? That's just a result of the. I don't think they steal hydroelectricity. It's just a matter of the equalization formula. It doesn't count certain resources, which again, it obviously needs to be reworked to be more fair and equitable to the provinces in the name of national unity. I'm not taking one side or the other. Can you break down your remigration idea? Yeah. I mean, remigration, simply put, is just the reversal of it's policy changes to reverse the flow of recent immigration trends. So mass immigration is when people are coming here. Remigration is when they're going back. So we've offered a kind of 11-point policy plan. You can find it on our website, dominionsociety.ca/remigration. We've kind of identified the major issue areas where people should obviously, where we can build a large mass movement of people in support of the types of people that could go back. We're talking about getting rid of all the illegals. There's millions of illegals here in Canada. We're talking about shutting down the temporary foreign worker program and sending back temporary foreign workers. We're talking about completely reformatting the asylum claim system and sending back, the 400,000 people that are waiting there in queue for their fake asylum claims to be processed, and even going back and revoking status that shouldn't have been given through that kind of asylum process. Changing how birthright citizenship is done so that you need at least one Canadian citizen to pass that on to the child, and then again, revoking citizenship from people who abuse birthright citizenship through anchor babies and stuff to facilitate chain migration. Like, we need to take a look at all the major flaws in our immigration system, because it's not just the big numbers of people coming in as permanent residents, right? It's all these kind of edge cases of people that have been abusing the system through foreign students, through temporary foreign workers, the international mobility program, birthright citizenship, asylum claims. Like, this is the big issues in our society that is just inexcusable. Even for more moderate people, they can understand that this is just not acceptable by any means. So you can find our full remigration plan there, but there's a lot of policies that can be changed in order to reverse these flows, and ultimately we we just need to take a more cultural perspective on our immigration policy. It can't just be all about economic perspectives and making GDP go up. That's not acceptable. We need to be able to preserve our identity and culture as Canadians. And at this rate, to do that, the only way to do so is to reverse the flows of migration. We need remigration. Yes, shh, your secret's safe with me, Western Loyalists. Any meetup in Ottawa? Yeah, I'm trying to plan something actually for May. It's just all about finding the right venues. We're kind of controversial, so it's been a bit of a challenge. But I'd like to host something here in May. Go camping together or have a jamboree of some sort? Yeah. We're actually planning some stuff like this for the summer. Question: should DOMSOC advocate for issuing special priority cards to true heritage Canadians similar to the cards issued to First Nations? I don't think we need to create these new hierarchies, racialized hierarchies within our society. I think we just need to get rid of people that shouldn't be here and shouldn't have been extended in the first place. Will Fortis Sax be our king? Maybe. A new Canadian monarchy? Repatriate the monarchy? Maybe. What changes would you make to CBSA and other institutions in order to report a larger average of people per week? Yeah. I mean, the CBSA just needs to be massively expanded, right? We need to either massively expand CBSA or form a new government department. We need some sort of remigration enforcement agents in order to. Right now, the CBSA largely relies on voluntary deportations, people just leaving because their temporary social insurance numbers have expired and stuff like this. We need an actual agency that's going to track who should be in our country and who shouldn't, and facilitate and remove people from our country if they're not able to. Right now, CBSA does almost nothing, right? So, massive expansions, hiring a new department, hiring remigration agents, and giving them the authority to remove people from our society. What do you think of Muslims praying in front of Notre Dame in Montreal? I don't like to see these kind of foreign religions, these massive kind of obelisks to foreign religions, foreign cultures. All of this is just a kind of display of dominance over our culture and society. I think Quebec recently made a move to ban public prayer in the province, something that will no doubt go up to the Supreme Court and be challenged as unconstitutional because, as we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms kind of gives too much power to our courts to prevent parliaments from deciding what's best for our society, which is the way Canada's supposed to function. So it looks like Quebec's already pushing back on this to preserve their culture. Because to go back to that Anthony Koch tweet, this is another kind of axis to the political spectrum, right? The identitarian versus multicultural axis, right? And everyone's very much on the multicultural side. It's only Quebec that's on the identitarian side. And from that kind of perspective, Quebec is the most conservative province on this kind of identitarian multiculturalism axis. They're the only province that has consistently stood for a coherent national identity. So in that respect, even though economically they might be left-wing, from a cultural perspective, they are the most right-leaning province. It's kind of a funny juxtaposition, but this exactly enforces what we were talking about earlier, how a left-right divide only focused on size of government misses crucial aspects to the broader conversation. We need DOMSOC green ties. You don't like my green tie? It's looking pretty good. DOMSOC green? Yeah. Official merch ties. I'll add it to the list. Guys. Mention Kang halves. I like that. Kang halves. I give a new definition to Wang half. If you know, you know. Are you guys active in Quebec? We still have a pretty small organization in Quebec. Everything we do is unilingual right now. I've had a lot of people offer to translate our website and our content and stuff like this. But right now, the kind of fundamental problem from my perspective is our leadership team is completely Anglophone. Like, it was founded by Greg, Ken, and I. We're all unilingual. We all speak a little bit of French, but not fluently, not enough to be able to properly communicate with Francophone members. So until I do want to bring a Francophone onto our leadership team before we start a kind of aggressive expansion into Quebec. So Quebec is definitely lagging behind because we're just not doing things in French yet. But we'll get there. We'll get there. I think we'll expand really quickly once we're able to communicate properly in that province. Did you see Martin Sellner's latest tactic for public speaking? They shut down his meeting, so he scheduled one on public transit through a diverse area. Maybe TS could too. Yeah. I've seen him had to do a lot of things to do his book readings. There's definitely some interesting inspiration there. I think we still need to test the limits of what's possible here in Canada before we can start getting too creative. Question 2, what is your deadline for achieving anything meaningful in Remigration? So if you don't meet the deadline, you can say, I am useless and took your money for nothing, so I resign. I think the next 3 to 5 years are critical in order to have a chance at solving this politically, metapolitically, democratically. I can only do my best, and I'll do everything in my power to make that happen. If we eventually get based government, how much institutional resistance will I face? That's a great question, and the answer is a lot, right? This is why it's so important to take this meta-political approach, so we can have this kind of society-wide change, because you're going to see incredible pushback from the bureaucracy and from the courts in particular. We have to use, everyone needs to read Lament for a Nation, the George Grant's book on the failures of the last big Canadian nationalist, John Diefenbaker. One of the reasons that Diefenbaker was ineffective at putting forward the reforms in Canada that he was given the mandate to do was because he faced so much institutional pushback. A disunited party, an economic elite that was Americanist, a hostile bureaucracy after 50 years almost of liberal governments. All of these factors resulted in him being ineffective. So we need to create a movement that will avoid these things. We need to have a coherent, prospective counter elite, economically speaking, that's aligned with the government. We need to be willing to push back on the courts, to change our constitution, to avoid these problems, to impeach judges, to move them out of the way if they're offering pushback that's not in the best interest of the Canadian people. Because right now, a lot of our remigration plan would be contested in the courts and put forward as discriminatory. Now in Canada, we're lucky enough to have the notwithstanding clause to shut down the courts and to maintain power within the parliament. But ultimately, we're going to have to make structural reforms. We will need to have a cohesive movement, a counter elite, a united party. We need to purge the bureaucracy. We need to be willing to push out judges if they're working against the interest of our people. The politics is only a piece of it. Like, we need to have the united party, a mass movement democratically on our side in order to do the reforms that are necessary. So we need to be taking a big picture approach here to create these reforms necessary. Remember, we're not a political party. We're not looking to just seize power and implement these things. We're looking to create the conditions through which remigration is inevitable, because it is so popular that people in the bureaucracy, people in the political parties, people in academia all support it. And then it becomes inevitable. So with the impending liberal minority at the doorstep, what are your next steps? I don't see the Liberals slowing immigration at all. They are going to increase the amount. So, Mark, you're not paying attention to things. The Liberal government has already reduced immigration. They've reduced permanent residents. They've reduced foreign students. They've reduced temporary foreign workers. We've already achieved a net negative migration rate in comparison to the mass immigration that we saw previously. So the Overton window has shifted so much on immigration. We've already seen the Liberal government doing things. Again, it's not just about conservative versus liberal. We need to think above politics. We need to think meta-politically. We need to normalize these ideas. We need to push them into the mainstream culture. We need everyone's already rejecting mass immigration. That's why the liberals are restricting things, right? Now we need to continue to push that conversation in a more positive direction, not just against mass immigration, but for remigration. And as that becomes more popular, we'll see the liberals continue to shift in order to capitalize on this. Or then if they're not, we need a party like the Conservatives to adopt those positions, to put more pressure on them politically. But as long as we can popularize ideas in the greater culture, they will be adopted by one party or another. And whichever party does adopt them, will win. But to just say that they're going to continue increasing immigration is just out of touch with the current situation. That's just not what's happening. Long live Fortissax. Shout out Fortissax. Everyone go read Fortissax's typing. What do you think about Patriot Front in America? I don't follow them very closely. I like to see nationalists getting organized. I'm not really into American politics, though. I'm more into Canadian politics. Is there a specific goal with remigration when it comes to heritage Canadians? Is it possible to make it 95% heritage Canadians again through birth rates outpacing others? I think it's important that Canadians remain the majority in Canada, and more importantly, I think we need to remain the super majority in Canada. 75, 80, 90%. I don't know how high we'll be able to get it, but in order to have a functioning society, you need to have this basic foundation. And once you can have your kind of ethnic base remain the super majority, then immigration works. Then integration and assimilation is kind of inevitable, right? Like, so many boomers kind of have this outdated notion of immigration where it's just like that one Lebanese family who's an eye doctor and he just kind of fits in, and that one Chinese family that runs the Chinese restaurant, and then in a city of 100 people, there's 5 of them that are foreigners, and they just kind of adapt to that way of living. And like that's not that is realistic, and that is how it functions. It's just not what we see anymore since the rates have went off the rails. So I do think it's important that we maintain heritage Canadians as a super majority here. We'll probably be falling below 55%. We'll see at the end of the year with this new census that's coming out. But we need to reverse those numbers. And keep in mind, like, so much of this has just happened in the last 20 years, right? It's the policies of the last 2 or 3 governments that just need to be reversed. And we can do it. We can do it. Like, even in 1990, we were like 80%, 85% white, right? It's all a very recent issue. We can reverse the flow of these things. It's just like politicians brought them here. Politicians can send them back. Would we call the new agency the Royal Canadian Remigration Enforcement Agency? Yeah, that sounds pretty based. I kind of like that. Bro, both parties are run by the Brits, the globalists in their Agenda 2030. I don't know about that. I haven't seen any proof of that. I already answered that. Stop spamming about Patriot Front. I already answered the question. Okay, I think I got to most of the questions. Do you think you will ever run for PM? I don't know about that. We'll see. Right now, I see myself as an activist. Like I'm here to create the conditions for a like-minded politician to succeed. I'm not actually running for politics myself. So we'll see where my path takes me. But right now, like I see myself as creating the conditions. I think what's necessary is this meta-political movement, this nonpartisan movement to change people's perspectives on politics, to embrace nationalism, to embrace remigration. So I'm not. We'll see where life takes me. I'll never say never, but right now, I think this is the best way for me to go, and hopefully, we'll see those downstream impacts. Is that a DomSock ring? No. This is my graduation ring. It's my university logo. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe we become a political party down the line. Maybe that's the only way to achieve our ideas. But right now, I'm bullish on creating that change through kind of meta politics. But at the same time, we're building a national organization. We're building a sort of shadow political party. I'll get to this in my closing rant. Great recommendation. Read Regime Change from the Right by Martin Sellner. He really does a great job of explaining meta politics and how we can leverage it to create change and normalize remigration and take back our countries. I strongly recommend that book. It's on the reading list. Have you started doing your readings yet? Anon? So his goal is to run for office or no? Right now, my goal is to normalize these ideas and hope and force politicians to start adopting our ideas. If that doesn't work, or if they're just playing lip service, we'll be in a position to run if that's the only way. But really, I think we need to be thinking bigger than just running for power. Because again, there's going to be so many structural issues we run into. We need to create the conditions. We need to normalize immigration reform, remigration, Canadian nationalism. Right now, I don't even know if a nationalist party could succeed quite yet, but there is an opening for us coming, I think. I'll answer a few more questions and then we'll close things up for tonight. It's getting late. Will the Dominion Society stand for cutting welfare payments such as CPP if at least in the interim we don't have Heritage Canadian demographic levels to pay for it? Again, we're very focused on just remigration. We promote remigration. We have a comprehensive policy on this. We're focused on promoting these ideas. We don't have a policy on every single issue. We're not a political party, at least not at this time. So we're very focused on just pushing remigration into the mainstream. So no, we don't have a position on that. Why can't I have him as a politician? I like him. We'll see. Never say never. Never say never. You guys are very sweet. I appreciate it, but right now I think this is the best way to go. No e-girls ever? Yes, no e-girls. Stay focused. Stay focused on the mission and not. Okay, I think I answered everything. Okay, we'll do one. Okay. Okay. I do want to close the show. What should we talk about? What did I keep saying we'd come back to? It's slipping my mind. Yes, yes. We need to. So right now, you need to understand that the what we for what's the best way of putting this? I keep saying we'll come back to it. We'll come back to it. You need a live stream planner, Daniel. Yeah. I agree. Right now, I'm doing everything myself. So if you think we need more resources, I need you guys to support us. I need you guys to go over to the website and sign up as a member. I need you guys to contribute some funds so I can start building out this organization so I don't have to do everything myself. Daniel needs more coffee. Yeah, exactly. So it all starts with you. We need to build a big war chest. We need to build a professional organization. We need people working on this project full time in order to really advance the cause, planning events, organizing volunteers, making content. There's so much that needs to be done. I try and do I try and do everything I can myself. But it is a lot that's going on, especially as the organization scales. That means all these administrative requirements, answering emails, coordinating people, all these things, everything takes time. And right now, I'm a big bottleneck. We need to expand the team. And to do that, we just need financial resources. Like the money that you guys donate, it's not just going into my pocket, right? It's getting reinvested into the organization. We need to build a serious meta-political machine, which means a full-time staff. You have to think about all the charities and not-for-profits that are out there that are advancing these anti-Canadian visions, these multiculturalist visions of our society. We need to build the kind of counterweight to that. And to do that, we need money. We need to crowdfund. We need to pool our resources to build that team of a bunch of young guys working towards this mission together, full time, around the clock, that aren't worried about getting fired from their jobs or worried about their livelihoods or anything like that. That can just go full time on this around the clock and take some work off my plate, so I can have a better planned live stream and not lose my train of thought at the end of the show. Really. So you have to see, and I've been saying this episode over episode, I think it's important that we take this meta-political approach. Right now, even if we had a political party, we wouldn't have extensive resources. We wouldn't have a lot of media coverage. We wouldn't have all these things that we'd be at the disadvantage compared to the mainstream parties, right? The reason we're taking this meta-political approach is we need to create the conditions for a hypothetical like-minded political party, whether that's the Liberal Party, whether that's the Conservative Party, whether that's the hypothetical future Dominion Party or whatever, Loyalist Party or whatnot. We need to create the conditions now for that to succeed later. So that's why we're focused on this kind of meta-political approach. Right now, we're nonpartisan. People of any political party can get involved as long as they believe in remigration, as long as they believe in preserving Canada's heritage and identity. They need to get involved with us. I see the Dominion Society as sort of a nexus point where we can bring together people from across the kind of political divide, from all different walks of life, blue collar, white collar, whatnot. The Dominion Society needs to be the hub where we all get together. If we wanted to have some sort of, and I keep bringing this up, like, our time is not right now, but it's rapidly coming. These floor crossings are just the latest sign that, like, the CPC is kind of on the CPC is on a trajectory of complete collapse or failure. After the next election, we have to look into the future and we have to prepare for what is coming. We're going to have a separation referendum in Alberta coming up. If the PQ gets elected in Quebec, there's going to be a separation referendum in Quebec. There's going to be another federal election. And I think I can see what's happening in all of these things. Like, I think that the Alberta referendum will fail. I think the hypothetical Quebec referendum will fail. And I think the Conservative Party will fail in the next election, even bigger than they did last time. And this will create a very chaotic situation. We might see the collapse of the Conservative Party, a split into multiple different parties. There could be a rise of a kind of Western separatist party. It's going to be a very chaotic political environment. And this is the opportunity when nationalists can strike, where we could start a new party and capitalize on this chaotic environment, where we could do a hostile takeover of an existing party like the Conservative Party. But for that to succeed, we need to build a comprehensive network. And I think that the Dominion Society is that building block that we can start to work towards this. We need to think about, I think that Trump is a very important example of this. And if you look back to 2015, 2016, when he was running, they demanded, will you support the eventual nominee? And Trump refused to support them. He said he would run as an independent and he could self-fund. He was financially not dependent on the establishment. He wasn't politically, he had his own personal brand. He could threaten that status quo. And as a result, he didn't have to conform himself to the Republican Party. He could define it himself. If we're going to do that in Canada, we need to build a self-sufficient network that's completely independent. People don't understand how the Conservative Party operates. Like, do you know how the Conservative Party is structured? Do you? Did you know there's multiple corporate entities that make up the modern Conservative Party? That there is the political party, the Conservative Party, and there's a separate corporation called the Conservative Fund of Canada that controls all the money? Like, did you know that when Maxime Bernier was running for the leadership, he ended up in a meeting with Harper loyalists, where they wanted him to conform to their ideas, and when he refused to do so, they apparently orchestrated his failure and fixed the vote to make sure that he couldn't run again. The Conservative Party is not controlled by the leader. The Conservative Party is controlled by backroom interests that control the purse strings. So if you wanted to have a hostile takeover of the Conservative Party, what you need is a leadership candidate who is completely independent of the Conservative Party, that wasn't dependent on the Conservative Party for membership lists, that wasn't dependent on the Conservative Party for fundraising, that wasn't dependent on the Conservative Party for political organizers or strategists or academics. We need to have a hypothetical leadership candidate that had this whole network built already, that had an independent fundraising force, that had an independent organization, so that he could go up to the Conservative Party and say, yes, I want to lead the Conservative Party. I want to lead Canada in a distinctly different direction. We're going to have a remigration program. This is our comprehensive nationalist program. And I'd like to take over the party. I'd like to win, and I'd like to take this country back in a right-wing direction. But if you guys are going to screw with me, then I'll start my own party. And for that to happen, we need a network of financial interests that are backing us. We need to have a counter elite, an economic elite backing us, We need to have guys in every single riding that would be prospective candidates. We need to have organizers all over the country we need to have volunteers across the country. We need to have a completely independent network, and that's what we're building through the Dominion Society. And yes, short term, our goals are meta-political. We just want to promote the concept of remigration. We want to host events and protests and hand out flyers and put up posters and put out media content and inform the public on the immigration disaster and the solution, which is remigration. That advances the conversation and puts pressure on existing parties in the short term. But it also puts the nationalist movement, the movement at large, in a stronger position to form our own political party, to take over a political party. It puts, through this metapolitical challenge, we're doing things correctly in the short term, but we're also building up this organization that can threaten the existing power structures, put pressure on them and take them over, or put them in a position where they can't just kick us out without blowing us up even larger. So you guys, we're not just thinking in the short term. This problem is not going to be solved tomorrow. The average Canadian has never heard the word remigration. They're not going to vote for it if they don't know what it means, if they've never heard if they've never even heard this word before, right? We need to take the next few years to prepare, to normalize this idea, to build out our resources, to build out our network, to build up our war chest. And then at that next moment, after that next election, during this chaotic environment, when things are falling apart, when everyone's like, wow, the modern Conservative Party has failed, right? That's what Pierre Poilievre is. He's the prodigal son of Stephen Harper, right? He is the conclusion of the modern Conservative Party. Stephen Harper brought the parties together. It only worked under Stephen Harper. Ever since then, they've been failing. And now Pierre Poilievre, he's their golden boy. He was the test tube baby grown from Harper's DNA or something, allegedly. I don't quote me on that. To bring this party to success. And he is failing. He is conclusively proving that the modern Conservative Party, with this classical liberal ethos, with this small government mindset, is out of touch with Canadians. And what is necessary is a new alternative that's willing to put forward a collectivist, communitarian, statist solution with a more culturally conservative grounding. That's what's necessary. And the Conservative Party has only proven again and again that they're not willing to go there because of foreign ethnic groups, interest groups that control the party. You know, the Jewish lobby is very powerful in the Conservative Party. The Khalistan lobby is very powerful in the Conservative Party. These interest groups have outsized influence on the direction of the party. And then the conservative establishment is sold out to this kind of very liberal small government notion, and they can control the purse strings and they control the direction any leader that's selected. So we need to build a nationalist counter elite. That's what we need. We need moneyed interests. We need organizers. We need strategists. We need to build the movement if we're going to succeed. So yes, right now, it's all about metapolitics. It's not about me running for parliament and losing. Like, that's not going to accomplish anything. We need to advance and normalize our ideas. We need to raise the nationalist consciousness in Canada. We need to raise awareness of the flaws of immigration and how remigration is not only possible, but the best direction for Canada. And if Mark Carney adopts our ideas, great, it's over. We already have it. They're going back. W. And if they don't do that, then we will have everything necessary to hijack a political party, start our own, and implement the vision ourselves. But right now, it's all about metapolitics. And I need you to get involved. I need you to be a part of this solution. I need you to sign up as a member. I need you to chip in $5, $10, $20, whatever you can afford, so we can grow the mission. I need to start. It can't just be me and Ken and Greg pulling our hair out, working all hours of the day. I need financial resources to hire more guys, to do the work, to move the movement forward. That's what we need. So if you can support, please do. And if you can sign up as a member and start volunteering, that is also huge. we need to have that network of organizers, and then we need to have or volunteers, and then we need to have a network of organizers. We need to form policy teams and research teams to advance the conversation into academia. We need to have our propaganda experts making short form content, making long form content, making the best memes. We need to have a cohesive movement that is capable of doing everything. And then we have the bones of a political party, and we can do whatever we can to change this country. All avenues are available. This is just the best way I think we can do things in the immediate term. So this is my vision. I hope you understand. I think we got bogged down a bit in some of those questions, but this is what I have in mind. This is what I have in mind. So, yeah, you got to understand how these things work, guys. Northwest Manny, thank you for the super chat, $20. Build the movement. I love your profile picture. What do you think of those hats, though? I don't know if you guys can see that. The Squidward with the green remigration hat. Would you guys wear that? Would you guys wear that? Should we make those? We have some other hats that are coming down the pipe. Thank you for the super chat. Do you think the bigger the organization gets, the liberals will censor you off the internet? We'll have to wait and see. This is another important lesson. You have to understand about dissidents in politics. The more the state cracks down on dissidents, the more popular dissidents get. So maybe they'll start persecuting us under Bill C9 or whatever's coming down the pipe. But we have lawyers in our organization that are going to be ready to help fight for us. We will challenge everything constitutionally. And the more that they persecute us, the more that they grow. If you're going to persecute me for being evil and hateful, I think the average person can see how ridiculous that is, because my message is not hateful. It's all about love for my people, for my identity, for my society. I don't want to see it disappear. So if you're going to try and censor me, I think it's just going to get more eyeballs on our message. And I think our message is in line with what Canadians want, what Canadians expect. So I welcome any sort of persecution. Now the real question, if we win, should we implement a warrior aristocracy? An interesting idea. We do need to reformat society along with those Canada's warrior culture. I want a green remigration. Of course you want one. I just don't know if you would be the only one. All right. So thank you for your support, everyone. I hope you've taken a moment. I hope you've signed up as a member. We will look to get you involved as soon as we can. As I've said many times, we're very backlogged on our onboarding, but everything's coming more and more efficient. We have a lot of young guys that are getting involved on the organizational level that are just wrapping up exams. So I think towards the end of April, we'll start to see things start to pick up again. I do need more and more people to get involved, helping us onboarding more members, organizing people at the local level. So if that's something that you're interested in, please reach out to us, info@dominionsociety.ca. You can we can set up a call and see how you can help out if you'd be a good fit for something like that. We need everyone to get plugged in. Maybe you take a smaller role behind the scenes. Maybe you're going to be right there on our front lines, holding our banners and flags. Maybe you're going to be there organizing volunteers to do literature distribution campaigns. We'll get you all set up. We need to start building towards it. We need to start doing the work. And we need to just start working together. We just need to start working together. That's the beginning and end of it. We need to start learning how to do politics, how to spread our message, how to knock on doors, how to strategically distribute literature, all these things. We're going to learn together, and we're going to shift this conversation back in the way that it should be going. That's all I have to say tonight, guys. Maybe not the most organized stream. My thoughts were a bit jumbled today. I won't lie. Thanks for the big super chat. What are your thoughts on Second Sons Canada? Micah Cozier for $20. Thank you for the great super chat. Second Sons, we don't have any affiliation with them, as some entities like to promote. I'm talking to you, Evan Balgord. But I like to see Canadian nationalists getting active, getting organized. getting in good shape. So I think it's a sign of a growing nationalist movement. It's great to see, but I'm not affiliated with them in any way. Thank you for the last minute super chat. Yeah, lots of people talking about a boxing club. We got to get active. We got to get fit. We got to become the best versions of ourselves. And once we become the best versions of ourselves, all we have to do is work together and coordinate, and our success is inevitable. So get involved, sign up, make a donation if you can afford it, help us grow. We're going to take this country back. Long live Canada.